A city in the state of Tennessee has banned homosexuality in public.
Up next, Gavin Newsom and many others are involved in another controversy after misinformation and alarmism was spread about a new LGBT law in one city. In November, Gavin Newsom tweeted, "A city in Tennessee has banned being gay in public. This is just the beginning. We have to call this out." Wow, that sounds pretty extreme. Sounds very homophobic. Sounds scary. Sounds bigoted. Sounds like America's becoming a hateful and dangerous place. There's just one problem, of course, that it isn't true. But Gavin Newsom was not the only one pushing this hoax of a story. TikTokers, with their typical leftist persuasion, went nuts over this and were raising bloody hell over it like this was Mike Pence's fever dream come to life in America, and we were slowly descending into The Handmaid's Tale. Check out this one TikTok that spread the news. It's now illegal to be gay in this city in Tennessee.
A city in the state of Tennessee has banned homosexuality in public. You heard that right. Let me say it again. They have banned being gay in public. The city is Murphysboro, Tennessee, and back in June, they passed an ordinance against indecent conduct. Now, most people didn't realize it at the time, they did it during Pride, that this ordinance linked back to a 1972 law, which defined various things that were considered indecent, and one of those things is public homosexuality. Now, some people thought that it might have been an oversight, and they didn't think that they would really try to enforce this. But just recently, they actually tried to use it to shut down Borough Pride, a pride festival in Murphysboro. And the Tennessee Equality Project, collectively with ACLU Tennessee and a few other major organizations, managed to hold a court hearing, and they blocked the law for that specific event. But the law is still in effect. It was only blocked for that pride festivity. And so now the local city council has decided to enforce this law in more places. Now they're turning to the libraries and they're pulling LGBTQ books off the shelves. There are multiple hearings going on right now, and they've already removed some LGBTQ books. This is the kind of law that we have seen in some Eastern European and Russian countries where they've decided to ban being gay in public. And all the outrage that we had for these countries whenever they did it, we seem to be getting no such outrage whenever it's some place in our own country, a state in our own country, a city in our own country that's doing it.
This claim is so misleading and so misrepresentative of the actual facts of the situation that even Snopes, which is a very liberal-leaning and biased fact checker, did a fact check pointing out the problems with this narrative. In a Snopes article, "Is public homosexuality banned in Murphysboro, Tennessee?" they report that in fact it is technically true that for a time, a city ordinance explicitly included homosexual activity of any kind as a violation of newly issued community standards. When you look into the details here, you'll quickly realize that nobody was ever arrested or prohibited from engaging in public homosexuality, and it essentially was an oversight left into a law that was derived from another old law that they then amended and removed. So the Snopes article points out Gavin Newsom's tweet, which received over 5 million views, so he convinced a lot of people that there was something going on here. And Snopes reports this claim that a city ordinance in Murphysboro, Tennessee banned public homosexuality was broadly true when an ordinance on, quote, community decency went into effect in June of 2023. But explicit reference to homosexuality was removed from the code in November 2023. In June of 2023, the Murphysboro City Council passed Ordinance 23022, a law purportedly regarding community decency that the Associated Press described as being, quote, designed to ban drag performances from taking place on public property, end quote. As described by its authors, the new law supplemented existing civil and criminal sanctions for indecent behavior by barring persons who engage in prohibited conduct from sponsoring events on a public space for 2 years and increasing to 5 years where the prohibited conduct occurs in the presence of minors. The bill included, quote, sexual conduct as one form of indecent behavior covered by the June 2023 enhancements to the code. This conduct term, however, was defined by Section 2171 of the Murphysboro City Code, which had been in place since the 1970s, and that defined terms used in a section of City Code detailing criminal offenses related to, quote, exposing minors to harmful materials. That code defined sexual conduct in a way that broadly included acts of homosexuality. A literal reading of the new law therefore could have criminalized any sort of public display of homosexuality, even if such a display was not overtly sexual or sexual in nature. So to recap, essentially this local city council, passed an attempt to ban what they saw as sexually explicit or inappropriate public behavior. In their law doing so, they used terms that, defined under old 1970 laws, did archaically still include homosexuality. This was never enforced to lock anyone up for being gay, and that very clearly was not the intent, seeing as they removed it almost immediately once this came to light. The intent of this law was to crack down on lewd or sexually explicit performances in public and or in front of children, something that is a hotly contested topic these days, and we can certainly debate. I'm not saying this law necessarily is something I would support or that you should support. We can debate the law. But one thing that most certainly did not happen was a city criminalizing being gay. Even the penalties for this were simply that you couldn't sponsor events in public. It's not like they were, even under this literal interpretation of this archaic law, going to be sending people to jail for what they did in the sanctity of their homes. And here's the thing. Even if the city had tried to ban homosexuality, they literally can't do that. There are ample Supreme Court cases, like Lawrence v. Texas, all the way back in 2003, holding that it's unconstitutional for the government in America to criminalize homosexuality. So if they wanted to do that, they couldn't. It would be almost immediately struck down in court. Should they have fixed this law and updated the old definitions before it technically went into effect? Yeah, I think they should have done that. That's part of good policymaking, and it looks like they dropped the ball here. But the narrative that Newsom and TikTok activists painted was one where evil Republicans are bringing back efforts to lock up gay people for loving who they love. And that narrative is detached from reality in this case. Now, the Snopes article and these TikTok activists have cited the fact that the Tennessee city has used this new law to block a planned Pride event that a group was trying to put on in their city. But I think they're more likely trying to block this event because it's publicly lewd. I mean, they say that it's been lewd in years past, and frankly, you don't have to have observed too many Pride events to notice that some do include public displays of kink and fetish, people barely dressed, or sometimes people fully in the nude in public in front of minors. I've covered that kind of thing on this show. So it could well be that they're trying to block this event because of public indecency, not because it has anything to do with them being gay. Regardless, they're fighting that out in court, and we'll see how that ultimately turns out. It might be that they have the right to have that event. But Murphysboro, Tennessee is not putting people in jail or locking people up or making it illegal to be gay in public. And Democrats and progressive activists, they seem to do this a lot, where they wildly exaggerate and overhype stories to try to alarm people and scare them. I find that contemptible, and I really think it's actually ineffective because when there are actual LGBT issues that are at stake, it's kind of like that old story about the boy who cried wolf. People aren't going to believe you because you've screamed bloody murder when you stubbed your toe in the past.